Everyone panicked when this tiny puppy's body suddenly swelled up like a balloon overnight. What happened to Artie? We had 2 emergency babies come in that night. Artie and Sal were born just yesterday, both with cleft palates, and both were already fighting for their lives. They were bleeding, battling pneumonia, and needed help fast. After hours of searching, a kind Uber driver agreed to drive them 2.5 hours to safety in the middle of the night. When they arrived, we got the bleeding under control, placed them on oxygen, started medicine, and began careful tube feeds. Their tiny bodies were weak, but their rescue had finally begun. The 2 babies who arrived by Uber that night were still hanging in there. Their pneumonia was severe and every breath sounded heavy, so we started nebulizer treatments to help reduce the fluid in their lungs. The antibiotics were doing their job, and now we had to give their little bodies time to fight. The good news? These boys were absolute champs with their tube feeds and were even starting to gain weight. And finally, they had names: Artie and Sal, short for artichoke and salami. Artie and Sal were starting to act a little more like healthy puppies, which mostly meant they believed feeding time should happen every single hour, all day and all night. These 2 chunky boys were doing so well, and their little personalities were beginning to show. The only thing we were still working through was a bit of diarrhea, but compared to where they started, this felt like real progress. Excuse me, I ordered milk service an hour ago. A few days later, Artie and Sal hit another rough patch. Their diarrhea had been constant for about 4 days, and even with fluids under the skin, medication, and careful care, their tiny bodies were falling behind on hydration. So we moved them to 4 fluids and IV medication for the next few days, hoping to finally get things under control. These 2 little meatballs had already fought so hard, and now we were just praying they would start feeling like themselves again soon. Both boys stayed on IV fluids and medication, but their paths started to look very different. Sal, the gray and white baby, was improving so much. His stool was almost fully formed. He was suckling well during tube feeds, and he had more energy in his tiny body. Artie, though, was still struggling. His diarrhea had not stopped, even with all the medication, and when puppies this small lose too much for too long, their protein levels can drop. We started noticing swelling in his back legs, so he was going to the hospital for blood work and might need a plasma transfusion. Sal was moving forward, but Artie still needed every bit of help we could give him. That night, Artie suddenly got worse. The swelling in his legs spread to his face, and his blood work showed that his protein levels were dangerously low. He was started on a plasma transfusion to help bring those levels back up, and he was also given medicine to help his body release the extra fluid. His breathing became harder, so he was placed on oxygen, and for a while his face was so swollen he could barely suckle. But by the next morning, we finally saw a little hope. His levels had improved. The swelling was starting to go down. He was suckling again, and his belly seemed more comfortable. At only 7 days old, Artie had already been through so much, but this little fighter was still holding on. I may be tiny, but I'm clearly the main character here. And then, Artie finally gave us the update we had been hoping for. The swelling had gone down so much, and his protein levels were back in the normal range. He was feeling better, brighter, and much more like his hungry little self again. He was still receiving plasma because we wanted his numbers to climb a little higher, but everything was finally moving in the right direction. This is what 2 a.m. looked like in our little rescue world. Tiny babies, quiet rooms, tired eyes, warm blankets, and another round of careful feeds. While most of the world was asleep, Artie and Sal still needed someone watching, feeding, cleaning, checking, and cheering them on. It was exhausting, but every little swallow, every tiny wiggle, and every peaceful nap made it worth it. Then came the update everyone had been waiting for. Both boys were finally catheter-free. After 3 days on a plasma drip, Artie's swelling was completely gone, and that felt almost unbelievable after how close we came to losing him. These little boys had proved just how strong they were. Sal opened his eyes today, and now we were waiting for Artie to do the same. At 17 days old, they were still tiny, still healing, but finally moving toward brighter days. And on the way to work, they got their favorite little bonus, car snuggles. These boys loved the gentle movement of the ride. Please keep driving. We are clearly very busy being cozy. At 18 days old, Salami opened his eyes wide and finally got his first little look at the world. Arta's eyes were still closed, so we were patiently waiting for his turn. This stage is always one of the sweetest parts of caring for newborn puppies. Once their eyes open, their tiny personalities begin to bloom. They start reacting more, exploring a little more, and slowly becoming the puppies they were always meant to be. Good morning from 2 wide-eyed boys. Artie finally caught up with Sal, and now both babies were looking around with those brand new puppy eyes. And then came the best part of every feeding, the milk coma. 1 minute, Artie and Sal were wide-eyed and ready for business. The next, they were completely melted into sleep, like 2 tiny potatoes who had accomplished a very important mission. And look who was trying a little time out of oxygen today. For Artie and Sal, this was another huge step forward. After days of breathing support, treatments, medications, and constant monitoring, their little lungs were finally getting a chance to work more on their own. So far, they were doing well, and every steady breath felt like a quiet victory. Artie was still out of oxygen and doing fantastic. His lungs were working so well again that he had plenty to say about it. He still had some catching up to do, though, because he was quite a bit smaller than his brother. We were also watching him closely for hydrocephalus and swimmer puppy signs, since his back legs were still slower to develop. He could stand and use them just at his own pace. Meanwhile, Sal had his own little habit, sleeping with his eyes wide open, which was both adorable and slightly creepy. He also loved claiming the top bunk above his brother every time. At 4 weeks old, these boys were getting stronger, louder, and closer to weaning off the tube. Then, Artie faced another heartbreaking setback. He needed a blood transfusion, and the doctors found fluid on the right side of his lungs. After all the progress he had made, seeing him struggle again was incredibly hard. We were giving him every medical support possible and waiting to see how his little body responded after the transfusion. That night, all we could do was watch closely, hope for improvement, and keep this brave little boy wrapped in every prayer we had. The last few days were incredibly stressful as Artie struggled with his breathing. After everything he had survived, this was one of the hardest moments to watch. We had to move fast with oxygen, x-rays, medication, and a blood transfusion to help his body carry oxygen again. For a while, it felt like we were losing him, but we trusted our instincts and gave him every chance we could. And thankfully, Artie started turning a corner. He was still depending on oxygen, but he was no longer fighting for every breath. His color looked better, he was resting more comfortably, and he was even suckling again during tube feeds. Sal missed him so much, so we let him spend time beside Artie in the oxygen bubble, keeping his brother company. These two are deeply bonded, and somehow, having Sal near him seemed to help Artie keep going. Thank you to everyone who donated, prayed, and helped us fight for this little boy. Your support is the reason we can keep giving babies like Artie a chance. Just when Artie was finally moving in the right direction, Sal decided it was his turn to keep us busy. He started squinting, and we noticed his third eyelid was covering part of his eye. So we took him in for an eye stain test, and it showed a small scratch on his eyeball. He was started on numbing eye drops, ointment, and serum drops to help the ulcer heal faster. Thankfully, it was caught early, and Sal was still acting like his usual dramatic little self. I have absolutely no idea how this happened, but I would like snacks during my recovery. And now the big boys were getting ready for their next chapter. Artie and Sal had come so far, and saying goodbye was already starting to hurt. This stage is always bittersweet. We love watching them grow, gain strength, and show off their little personalities. But it is never easy to let them go. Moments like this are exactly why we never let a birth defect decide a baby's future at birth. Artie and Sal deserved a chance, just like every other puppy, and they proved what can happen when someone chooses hope. Soon, they would head to their foster home with familiar little comforts to make the transition easier. Thank you to everyone who helped these little fighters get this far, and thank you to Short Mug's rescue squad for taking them in. Artie and Sal's story began in fear, with 2 newborn puppies fighting for every breath. But because someone refused to give up, their story became one of hope, healing, and second chances. Thank you to everyone who prayed, donated, shared, and supported these little boys along the way. If you can, please help us keep saving babies like Artie and Sal by pressing the thanks button, subscribing to our channel, or becoming a channel member. Every bit of support helps give the next tiny fighter a chance.